Okay, so this happened to me earlier, and I don't think I'll be sleeping tonight. I'm currently staying in a remote part of the United Kingdom and having a break from work, which means more time to pursue my hobbies, one being photography. I had scooped a creepy looking tree formation in a nearby forest and set my camera and tripod up as the sun was coming down, you know, for the extra creepy vibe. As I'm happily taking photos, I see a woman pass the entrance to the arch trees. This woman had parked her car next to mine when I arrived. She went past a couple of times, looking at me for prolonged periods with each time she passed. I assumed she wants to come up to this path, but sees that I'm taking photos, so decides to walk elsewhere. Approximately 5 minutes go by, and she appears again, this time walking towards me, dragging her left side slightly with this strange limp. She stops once and stares at me for a few seconds, then starts walking towards me again. I ask her if she's okay. I'm starting to put my camera away at this point, and readying my tripod to use for self-defense, if necessary, because the vibe I'm getting is way off. And she starts grunting at me, then stops and stares again. It's at this point that this woman is close enough for me to realize that she's actually a man in a woman's clothing, with a wig. An uncomfortable moment passes and she starts grunting again, walks toward the edge of the path, grabs a pile of leaves, and starts throwing them around. Grunts some more and then walks off aimlessly into the woods. I call my friend to tell her what had just happened, asked that she stays on the phone in case this person comes back. I'll just take a couple more photos, then I'm out. For a good 10 minutes I hear the crunching of leaves circling me in the forest, and I just convince myself that it's the wildlife, then silence. I take the photos, and I haven't seen or heard the person for around 15 minutes or so now, so I assume I am safe. I leave the path and see the car is gone. Thank fuck. However, I very quickly notice that there is a man walking towards me from the entrance. It's the same fucking guy. He is changed into men's attire, and as he walks past me, he shoots me a grin that sends shivers down my spine. I don't scare easily, but this motherfucker gave off all the wrong signals, causing this overwhelming feeling of dread to wash over me. I'm still on the phone, and at this point, holding my tripod over my shoulder, just in case. I quickened my pace and got back into my car. As I did so, I saw him come out of the lane that I had been down, stop and look around, then start walking towards my car with intent. I video for a while, then haul the fuck out of there, driving past his car that he had moved down the road and thinking, what in the gray beard fuck just happened? Limping leaf throwing forest stalker? I hope we don't fucking meet again. When this took place, I was 22, and I'm 5'1", so I'm not very intimidating. I used to work as a kindergarten teacher, and I would meet parents and other family members all the time. I made extremely good relationships with all of my students and good impressions on their caretakers. One day, about a month late, we got a new transfer student from another school on the other side of town. Right off the bat, I hated his dad. He was creepy and would always look at me with a certain look. I brushed it off at first because I've had male caretakers hit on me before since I was single at the time. The child was weird. He would bully kids in the weirdest ways. He would tell the kids that he wanted to cut off their fingers and eat them like corn dogs. I had a conference with the dad and child after school, and he didn't seem angry or uncomfortable like I would assume most parents would be. He just had a small smile like he was trying to hide how proud he was. He never took his eyes off of my mouth. It made me extremely uncomfortable. We finished the conference and agreed he'd have no recess for a week. Months went by, and I had gotten a boyfriend. We were walking in an outdoor shopping mall on a date when I felt someone watching us, like I felt the eyes burning into the back of my head. We walked into a furniture store, and my boyfriend looked so uncomfortable. "There's a man that's been following us. Let's go," he whispered. I don't say anything, but he knows that I agreed. We walk out, and he wraps his arms around my hip. "Miss K," I heard behind me. I turned, and it was the child and the dad. "We just saw you walking, and we thought we'd come say hi." He smirks. He looks at my boyfriend and glares at him. He is 6'3" and has the build of a Viking, but extremely fit. He has the beard and all. He could be considered extremely intimidating, but he's just one big teddy bear. Let's call him John. "This is John, my husband," I smiled. I lied because I knew if guys heard my husband, sometimes they'd back off. The dad seemed very put off by this, like he was going to attack him. We awkwardly talked for a moment and drove home. Fast forward 4 years, and John and I got married. We moved to a new home. It had many windows and was extremely gorgeous. We had put metal stoppers on the windows because we don't trust people, even though we were in a very nice neighborhood. John and I were spring cleaning, and it felt like someone was watching me. John was next to me washing the top of the fridge, and I instinctively turned around and looked out the window to see a car across the street. I asked John if he knew who it could have been, and he said no, and then closed the blinds, also being creeped out by it. That night, we were falling asleep on the couch, and in the living room, we had 2 extremely large windows that faced the backyard. John had fallen asleep, and I was still watching when I heard weird metallic tapping on the glass. I played it off and used my peripherals to look out the window. I got a glimpse of a shadow passing by, and I woke up John. I told him someone was out the window, and thank God for my great taste in men. He used to be a police officer, and is now a firefighter. We keep a crowbar next to the front door and a metal bat behind the couch. He grabs the bat and hands it to me. He slowly walks around to the dining room, and under the table is a gun he keeps for emergencies. I called 911, and I heard John run out the front door quickly. "You bastard! I have a gun, and I have no problem shooting you," he yells. And since it was like 1:15 in the morning, he couldn't get the license plate. We filed a report, and the cops that came knew John, and they said that they would have someone patrol the house for a week or so. Fast forward again to a month later. We were in bed, and I happened to need to pee at like 3 in the morning. I come out of the bathroom and felt someone grab my face. I had no fighting experience, so I didn't know how to defend myself. The bathroom door swings in, and there is a towel bar behind it, so when the door hits it, it's super loud. I slammed my arm against the door, and John is a very light sleeper, so I was hoping he'd hear it. I felt really drowsy and felt the person dragging me. I woke up in the hospital and saw John in the chair next to me. I asked him what had happened, and he said he grabbed the metal pipe under the bed and attacked the man. He shattered his jaw and broke both of his knees. When the man was unconscious, John turned the lights on to see if it was the dad. He called the police, and I am apparently mildly allergic to chloroform. To this day, we have no idea how he got in the house. The front and back doors have glass doors, so we locked the glass in the main doors before going to bed. We never opened the windows further than the guards, and there are screens on the windows. There was no sign of forced entry, and no fingerprints anywhere from the guy. Now I'm putting my doctorates to good use in teaching university students. They are much more tolerable and I feel safer since the university is a few blocks down the road from the fire station. To that kid, I hope you grow out of that weird sadistic phase. And to the dad, I hope you rot in jail and we never meet again. Before I begin, I will clarify right now that I absolutely never led this kid on. Everyone who knew about it while it was happening will say the same. I am not a flirty person, and I was very careful not to say or do anything to make this boy believe I was into him. So we are traveling back 7 years, all the way back to when I was 14 years old. Makes me feel old as hell. I was at a high school sport event. It was a Friday night game. I can't remember if it was a football or a baseball game. All I know was it was the last day of school before spring break. I wasn't super into school spirit. I was an emo kid and a loner for the most part, but my best friend pressured me into going. I reluctantly agreed, and looking back, I wish I didn't. I have known her since I was like 4, so if anyone could convince my stubborn ass to do something, it's 100% her, laughing my fucking ass off. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call Stalker Boy Zach, and my guy friend Cody. I had met Zach through my friend Cody. I probably spoke to him for 3 minutes, honestly. It was more like an introduction, and I didn't vibe with the guy the way he stared at me, so I went back to my all-girl friends, and we continued the night. After I got home, I received a text from Cody saying Zach thought I was pretty and wanted my phone number, so he gave it to me. I don't really think much about it. I mean, it's not that I wouldn't wanted to talk to him or for him to have my number, but I was super close with Cody, and he was reliable, so I would never have given my number to someone if he thought something was off with them. So I wake up in the next day on a Saturday, and everything's fine. Towards the afternoon, I receive a text message saying, "Hey, it's Zach. I got your number from Cody." So we had small talk basically. I didn't want to be a jerk, so I respond mainly because he has friends with Cody, so I didn't want to be rude. After about 45 minutes of texting, he tells me he's leaving for a cruise and was really upset I wasn't coming with. So obviously I asked what he meant, and he said he would miss me and hated to be away from me for a week. I definitely thought it was extremely weird, but I figured it was sarcasm or a joke, so I texted back saying something like, "LOL, we have spoken for less than an hour. I think you'll be just fine." And he was like, "Yeah, I guess." From my perspective, I had a lot going on in my life. I was very anxious talking to people. I suffered from depression and daddy issues. I wasn't someone who could just be like, "You're weird, black number." I was very shy and just didn't know what to do in the situation. So I will admit, I let it go longer than I should have, but I was 14 and didn't realize who I was dealing with, to be honest. So, he's on the cruise, so I didn't hear from him for like a week. Then eventually he gets off the boat and tells me that I'm the first person he wanted to text. He even said he couldn't stop thinking about me and all the fun things we could have been doing while on the trip. The rest is pretty fuzzy, but all I remember is Zach kept saying weird shit like how we will get married in the future and how we are soulmates, and how he's never been so in love with anyone. He became obsessed with me for some fucking reason. If I didn't respond, he would text me every 5 goddamn minutes on the dot, asking if I was mad at him, until I responded. It was just very obsessive behavior. I would tell him I'm busy, and he'd get upset. He just needed me to text him constantly. One day, I basically told him that he was taking things way too far and that I was uncomfortable. I said I was sorry if I had somehow led him on, but I think of him more as a friend. He definitely didn't like that response. He was making fake Instagrams to harass me, telling me he's going to kill himself because I broke his heart, calling me a fucking whore. My first kiss was at 18 and my first boyfriend was at 19. So you do the math on whether I'm a whore or not. Laughing my fucking ass off. He was just saying anything and everything to hurt me. I spent hours apologizing while he was telling me I'm a horrible person and should kill myself. It was just a fucked up conversation. I could not get Zach to leave me alone for months. After that, my friends had to sneak me out around campus to avoid Zach. I'd have to cut through buildings and take the long way to steer clear of him. Eventually, after a few months, he stopped harassing me online, and I actually thought I was free. Now, flash forward to sophomore year, after months of being in chemistry class, I noticed my friend, we'll call him Max, had the same last name as Zach. It's an uncommon last name, so it was like a little light bulb turned on in my brain, and I immediately asked if they were related, and he rolls his eyes and said, yeah. I was like, holy fuck. We ended up chatting, and apparently I'm not the only girl Zach would harass. Max told me he got sent to another school and was put into therapy for basically being crazy and aggressive. Zach, unfortunately, was extremely abusive toward Max. I was relieved he was sent away. Max was definitely more relieved he was sent away. It just made sense why the harassment stopped suddenly. Now, we are entering junior year. Max had informed me his brother was enrolled back in our high school. Thankfully, I had a heads up, but nothing would prepare me when I actually saw him face to face. I walked into my English class, and guess who's sitting in my goddamn classroom? If you have guessed Zach, you get a big-ass gold star. The second we made eye contact, he smiled the creepiest smile I'd ever fucking seen. I was so scared. I almost shit my spleen out. Thankfully, he never spoke to me or harassed me. However, he did spend every class staring at me with that scary grin on his face. As much as I wish I was making this shit up, unfortunately, these are true events that actually really affected me in high school. When my friend brought it up the other day, it honestly felt like a fever dream. Like I just forgot it was all real. It was hard spending 2 whole years of high school terrified of bumping into him, not knowing what the fuck he would do, especially after finding out everything his brother, Max, went through. But now it's been years since I have had to deal with him, so Zach, let's never fucking meet again, dude. And I really hope you got the fucking help you need. I apologize if this gets lengthy. There's a lot to unpack here. This happened to one of my best friends and I back in 2017. I feel like it's worth sharing. Some backstory. My best friend Elise was dating this guy Mark in 2016. They broke up right after New Year's was approaching. I've known Elise for over a decade, but we didn't talk much while they were together. I ran into them once at a local coffee shop, hugged her, and was chatting away while Mark stared at me in disgust, as if Elise wasn't allowed to talk to her friends at the time. I thought nothing of it, assuming he was just antisocial. I had no idea he would go on to ruin an entire year of my life. It's really fuzzy as to how Mark got into contact with me specifically. I believe Elise posted about her breakup, and I offered my support publicly, so he targeted me. It began on New Year's Eve. He started messaging me on Instagram over and over, threatening me. I was having a get-together with my then-boyfriend, two of my now ex-best friends, and my now ex-best friend's boyfriend. I remember seeing my notifications blowing up and ignoring it. Everyone else seemed more concerned than I was. I brushed it off until late that next day. I checked my phone and I had dozens of DMs from Mark, as well as a few public posts that he had tagged Elise and I in, calling us every name in the book and claiming I was the reason they broke up. I answered his DMs asking why he was targeting me. That was the biggest mistake I had ever made. After some angry messages from him, he blocked me, and I thought it was over. I also had several missed calls from Elise, so I finally contacted her and asked what was going on. She frantically told me that Mark was a dangerous man, and that he's been tormenting her since the day they became a couple. He would throw her around in his apartment, leaving awful bruises that she sent me photos of. He would threaten to commit suicide if she left him, and he even threw a hissy fit at a tattoo shop because they wouldn't tattoo Elise's first and middle name over his eyebrow. He got Crybaby instead, fitting. Elise also informed me that Mark had gone to jail before meeting her for domestic abuse. He stabbed his ex-girlfriend in the leg and was only behind bars for a month before his dad bailed him out. With this new information, I was terrified. Elise told me where he lived, and it was directly behind the coffee shop I mentioned earlier. I frequented that building and that part of town in general. That'll come into play later. I eventually calmed myself down and forgot about him until he got my phone number. I still don't know how he got it, but I woke up to 30 plus messages from him one day and was horrified. His messages included threats to kill himself if I didn't help him and Elise get back together, threats to kill me, cries for help, him blocking my number and then unblocking it just to start the cycle all over again, I being very naive and not wanting to be held responsible if he actually killed himself, did not block him. I asked him to leave me alone and if he wanted a number to a hotline where he could get some help, and he pretended to calm down for a bit. I gave him the number after many messages from him saying how much he missed Elise but also wanted to kill her. I told her immediately and pushed her to go to the police. She did not. He conditioned her to believe that she would get in trouble if she reported him. This went on for months. I usually didn't respond, and when I did, he seemed to chill out for a bit. I'm skipping ahead to a particular night where Elise and I were hanging out at my house, where we were chatting away. When my phone started to light up, I ignored it and kept talking because I didn't want to be rude. Elise peeked at my phone and said, "It's Mark, look." Sure enough, Mark was bombing my phone with threats to slit his own throat because he knew Elise was at my house, calling us both cunts and claiming it would be our fault if he died that night. I did not answer, but what came next is something that still haunts me to this day. He sent a video. Being curious, I clicked on it. Elise watching over my shoulder. The video was of Mark's arm, a huge gash going down the middle. He was fake crying in the background, saying, "You made me do this, I fucking hate you both." He clenched his fist over and over again to make more blood gush out. Elise and I were in such shock that we watched the entire 50-second clip, despite how disturbing it was. I immediately called my local police station. Elise gave them his address, and an officer came to my house to view the video and take down some notes. While we waited for the police to arrive, Mark posted the gruesome video to his Instagram and unblocked Elise and I just to tag us in it. claiming that we told him to do it, being a conversational, attractive guy with an e-boy aesthetic. The girls that swooned over him commented some pretty harsh things about us and kissed his ass like crazy. He was admitted to the hospital that night, and I wish that they kept him. The harassment continued the second he got out. Time traveling a little more now to a few months later, Mark hadn't let up, and Elise and I were still very close. We had a friend, Kayla, visiting from across the country. She also had a run-in online with Mark, hated him, but wasn't afraid of him. She was always carrying more than one weapon, some pepper spray, and she knew how to fight. So she suggested we go take a walk in the part of town he lived in. She wanted to visit that coffee shop, see some of our small businesses, and then grab dinner at a pizzeria. Elise and I reluctantly agreed. We parked in front of the coffee shop, grabbed some drinks, and started walking down the road. Within about 5 minutes, Mark drove by on one of his motorcycles. Elise and Kayla were immersed in conversation as I trailed behind. I looked up and made eye contact with Mark. Elise and Kayla noticed him as well as he was speeding off. Kayla assured us he wouldn't get anywhere near us with her around, so we kept walking. Mark began cycling the block. We were walking on with his bike. As we crossed to the next block, he switched to that block and circled it too. On the third block was the pizzeria place. Their walls are all glass, all see-through, of course. We went in and were seated in the corner, right next to the glass. We sat there for about an hour and a half, eating, talking, and sipping on soda. Mark circled the restaurant the entire time, and we did our best to ignore him. Once we were finished, we got up to leave. Mark sped off, and we didn't see him again that evening. Some time passed, and Mark began riding by Elise's house every night. Within a week, he started doing the same to me. I told my parents and my stepfather, who kept a close eye on our street. My mom always made sure our doors and windows were locked, shades were shut, etc. Before going to bed, my dad would even do a nightly patrol, where he would drive around my street for a few minutes on his way home from work. Since he no longer lived there, he would call me and let me know that the coast was clear as he was leaving. I still woke up almost every night to the sound of his motorcycle engine revving up outside my house. We had no proof of this to show to the police because he was somehow doing this without a trace, so we didn't bother reporting it. At the end of 2017, Mark took his motorcycle and sped off to California to avoid the legal trouble he had gotten into there. Elise and I were relieved, to say the least. He still harassed us from time to time, but he never came back. We stopped hearing from him after a while, and we thought nothing of it. Fast forward one last time to September of 2019, Elise and I were out and about, enjoying the sunshine, when she got a phone call. Mark was dead. He had died right after his calls and messages to us had stopped. He got into it with his new drug dealer in Arizona and pissed them off enough for them to come and shoot him. He died instantly. He also caught more than 2 domestic violence charges in California and in Arizona, and was on the run from his warrant. His father told everyone it was an accidental overdose because Mark was known for abusing Xanax and other miscellaneous drugs, but it was to cover his sociopathic son's ass. I'm not sure if Mark's death was his karma or some higher being protecting us and all of the girls he's hurting before and would hurt in the future, but he's gone. We never have to worry about our safety because of him ever again, although seeing photos of him does still give me the creeps. Mark, I don't know where you are, but this world is better off without people like you. I am so glad you are gone. Let's never, ever meet again. If you are new, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, as it really helps me out. And if you are already subscribed, welcome back and thank you for subscribing.